honestly, I almost didn't want to record today's video, because the variations are just so good that I really wanted to keep them for myself. But since you guys are clearly loving the bishop's opening, my first video about this got almost 2 million views, I decided to share it with you anyway, so grab a coffee or whatever you love, and let's get right into it. Now, the bishop's opening obviously arises from you playing the king's pawn move pawn e4, black responding symmetrically pawn e5, and then you bring your bishop out to c4. And although the move is really good, it's a very decent opening, you don't weaken anything, you don't sacrifice anything, but still it's a lot less mainstream compared to knight to f3, and so you have this surprise factor. Most of your opponents have very little knowledge about the bishop's opening, and you can get a lot of nice victories. So after bishop c4, they'll usually bring their knight out, or the other knight, that doesn't really matter, that attacks this pawn, so you're gonna defend it, and then they usually play bishop c5, still hoping that you're gonna play knight f3 and transpose this into usual stuff, but we delay development of this knight because we want to keep the option of pushing this pawn forward. And so we develop the other knight instead. Here they usually go pawn to d6 or something else, and in this point we do play pawn to f4. So what we achieve with this is that we actually start attacking right away, and we're getting something like the improved version of the king's gambit, right? Where you do play these moves pawn e4 and pawn f4 to attack on the king side, to target opponent's king. But in this case, it's a lot more comfortable actually for you, because unlike the king's gambit, it's actually not a gambit anymore. This pawn is actually defended by your bishop, therefore you're not even gambiting anything, so f4 is really cool. And after that, in many variations, this pawn is going to go forward, pressure black there on the king side, give you a lot of space advantage and a lot of opportunities for your future attack. And this is actually the most critical position, I would say, of the bishop's opening. And here there are a couple options that your opponent can pick. For example, some of your opponents who are more aggressive may decide to punish you for playing this provocative move f4, which weakens your king, you know, somehow along this diagonal. And they may play the move knight to g4 here. Because after knight goes to g4, you know, they're threatening knight f2, which would fork your queen and rook. Maybe their queen can go out here to h4 and attack you. Maybe the bishop can come to f2. That looks quite promising for black. So knight g4 is their first try. Besides that, they may just play some normal development moves, such as knight to c6. We're going to talk about that as well. And finally, some of your opponents, after you played pawn f4, will decide to capture here. They haven't watched my video where I'm discovering that to take is a mistake, where I'm explaining that rule, so they'll take here on f4, which is nice for you. Now, quick disclosure, or rather a little spoiler, in all three options, black is going to go down quickly if you watch this video till the end, because you will know how to punish black properly. Anyway, let's start from the most aggressive attempt of black, knight to g4, which is potentially the most challenging, right? Black has a number of threats here. Now, how do you deal with that? In fact, there is a really funny way here. You do play your move pawn f5 anyway, kind of ignoring black's ideas completely. Moreover, pawn f5 actually shuts down this bishop, which is one of the key ideas behind this move pawn f5. So the bishop is no longer active along this diagonal. It no longer defends the knight. Therefore, the knight is actually hanging here. You want to capture it. Also, it will always be problematic for black to bring this bishop into the game, to activate it somehow, because your pawn wall kind of blockades the bishop. Okay, anyway, right now black has to address this threat, but black is happily to address it because they wanted to play knight f2 anyway, attacking your queen and rook. And now you unleash this really super strong counter attack, which is so unexpected for black. You play queen h5. And now you're threatening scholar's checkmate. Of course, your opponent will probably notice this, but they have no problems with this because they can defend easily. They can either castle kingside or they can play g6. Both ways are actually great for you, once again. So if they castle, you keep counter-attacking, this time by playing the move bishop g5, which is getting your bishop involved. It attacks the queen over there, and just you keep bringing your pieces closer and closer to the opponent's king. Okay, now after bishop g5, they get to protect their queen. Notice that they can never move this pawn forward because it's pinned down to the king by your light square bishop. That bishop's opening bishop, so to say, okay? So it's always very powerful. Now they have to move their queen from danger, so they're going to move it somewhere. And after that, you can play knight d5, once again neglecting that black is going to capture this rook. You don't really care about the rook because you really want to checkmate black. And after knight d5, your opponent will probably think that you're going to capture this pawn and attack the rook, attack the queen. And while that is also one of your potential ideas, but the actual threat is even different. If black captures this rook, and they usually does, you change the root of this knight, and instead of capturing this pawn, you play knight f6 check. And all of a sudden, you're actually checkmating black within just a couple moves. Now, black has to take the knight because it attacks the king, attacks the queen. Also, you are ready to play queen takes h7 checkmate on the next move, so black is forced to take. And now your bishop recaptures, and black is defenseless against you playing queen g5 and queen to g7 checkmate. or, through some other square, queen g4, queen g7, queen h6, queen g7. Anyway, you're checkmating black basically within the next 2 or 3 moves. So that's how you can defeat a lot of strong players, including very strong players, because the previous moves of black are so natural and tempting, and the following combo of white is so unexpected that really you have high probability of using this exact position and winning games just like that. Besides castling kingside, in this position, black may wish to defend their f7 pawn by playing pawn g6. That's another natural looking move. They're kicking your queen away, and they still hope to pick up this rook on h1, and black may still be under the illusion that they're actually winning the game because they're going to grab your rook on the next move. But g6 actually weakens a lot of these dark squares around their kingside, around their king, and we're happy about that. We play queen h6, and the queen penetrates closer to black's king. In some variations, we're ready to go deeper and attack the rook, attack this pawn on f7. Black will probably take this rook anyway because they don't have much other options anyway. And now we play the same move, bishop g5, bringing one more attacker piece into action, and we are winning once again. We're hitting the queen here. If it ever moves, we actually can play the very same move to the previous variation, knight to d5, bringing this knight into the attack, and now knight f6 is really powerful. It's going to attack the king, it's going to attack the queen. Queen g7 is still a threat, so black here is completely defenseless. Now let's take it back. It's more common for black to play pawn to f6, hoping that this attack wins a tempo and you're going to retreat with your bishop. But instead, we play pawn takes g6. And what I really love about this variation is that you can really see how great this opening is compared to the king's gambit. Our f-pawn not only wasn't gambited, it wasn't captured on move 1, but it actually made a great career. Just look at this. We pushed it to f4, f5, now grabs this pawn on g6, and what we're going to do next is actually to promote it into a new queen. And there is not much black can do against it. So the pawn made a brilliant career here. Now black cannot recapture because that will hand the rook on h8, right? So the pawn is pinned. And if they capture your bishop or do anything else, your opponent just goes forward, attacks this rook, and black is defenseless. Our bishop is controlling this square, the pawn is going to capture that rook, their king is still vulnerable to your attack, and that is once again completely winning. Alright, now when we covered knight to g4 and we know that this tempting option is actually bad for black, let's go to the other options. By the way, in this video I did not cover the move bishop to g4, because I have another video, which I'll link up there and also in the description below, where Fischer playing white showed how white can win there, so you can check this out later. For now, let's focus on other options, which are basically some developing moves, such as knight to c6 or capturing this pawn on f4. Okay, if black develops with the move, for example, knight to c6, you can still play the very same move, pawn to f5. That's in fact our plan in most of these variations. It's extremely advantageous, as we see. It gives you a lot of space advantage on the king side, it shuts down this bishop, which can't get out anymore, and overall makes black's king side cramped and difficult to defend. Now after f5, black will usually castle, because that's the only normal looking move here. And now we play bishop g5, and strangely enough, black is kind of defenseless here actually. So we put this pin, and our plan is really simple and quite standard. So we're going to go knight to d5, exploiting this pin, putting more pressure onto this knight. Then we're going to capture the knight, expose black's king, and then attack it. It's also very convenient for us that our queen is ready to join the attack along this diagonal, and as soon as you eliminate this knight from f6, your queen is going to join the attack with decisive effect. So that's our plan, and really black has nothing to do to stop this. For example, if they try h6 to kick your bishop away, you could just bring it back to h4, and that's perfectly fine. But it is even stronger to play this thematic move pawn to h4, which works across different openings actually, and it is very strong. So we maintain the pressure as much as we can. Our plan is still the same, knight to d5 takes f6, and then after black recaptures, I'm sorry for many arrows, but after black recaptures, we're going to pick up this pawn, for example. Okay, so that's our attacking plan, after whatever basically black does. And if black ever tries to capture this bishop, that's actually going to make things worse for black, because now our rook joins the attack, and now we're also ready to checkmate along the h-file. If black, for example, moved their knight away here, anywhere, we'll really bring our queen out, and now, together with the rook, we put up this battery along the h-file, and our queen is ready to checkmate black over h7 or h8 square if the knight moves, so that's the end of story. By the way, let's also have a little quiz for you here. What if black wants to provide an escape path for their king and goes rook to e8? So in this position, actually, white wins in 3 moves. So here's the puzzle of the day. Find the checkmate in 3 moves. Okay? Honestly, white would win after most of the normal looking moves here, but there is only one as far as I can see, checkmate in 3, and that is your task to find it, and if you can, write it in the comments down below. And the very final option that we need to cover is black capturing simply this pawn on 4. That's pretty good for you because now you can develop your bishop with a tempo, and after that black will castle usually, now you bring your knight out, and in this position the most played move by 4 is the move bishop g4. Lots of players mistakenly believe that putting this pin in your knight is something extremely great. In fact, it's not the case. I even recorded a separate video where I break it down exactly how you can punish black for playing this move, but for now, let me just show you one way. One way is to start using this bishop as a target for your attack and to use it to expand on the king side and to put together a very quick and effective attack. So you do that by playing h3. Your opponent wants to maintain the pin, so they go back. If they capture the knight, good for you, you got the 2 bishops advantage. Generally speaking, bishop is a little bit stronger than a knight, and after that your plan, generally speaking, doesn't change. You're going to keep doing the same thing. So next you play pawn g4, attack this bishop, forcing it back, and now here's the trick. We outsmart black by expanding on the king side, and then you quickly play queen d2 and hide your king to safety on the queen side. But what we achieved through this expansion is that our pawns are really ready to, be pushed forward and to attack black in a very hasty manner. So after whatever move of black, let's say knight to c6, we're going to castle. And again, after whatever move of black, in most cases they go knight d4, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, knight e4 attacks the knight, so we can address that, we can trade. And then you can play h4, h5, and basically you're going to attack here very quickly. Your attack is much faster than any potential counterattack of black. So h5 is going to capture this bishop over here, actually. So black is going to lose the bishop. Then you can play g5 and attack this knight. Your opponents can keep going forward, so you just throw them forward, expose the king and attack it along these open files, and you win. So that's our simple winning plan, and black really has nothing to oppose. If you have any questions about what I've covered so far, feel free to drop them in the comments down below and I'll be sure to follow up. Also, of course, knowing openings is not the only thing required to become a really strong player. You also got to know how to play middle game well. And if you're interested in that, I've got this free masterclass that covers how to play the middle game phase like a pro. Hope that you enjoyed today's video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and I'll talk to you soon.